Man, we all have regrets, we all make mistakes, but when it comes to gear, sometimes we make some very expensive mistakes. And so here is some of the gear that I regret buying, and some of these have been sold and I've moved on from. Some of them I still have because I just haven't been able to get away from it. The first one I can think about is when I first started getting into backpacking is I bought boots. And those of you guys who know me now know that I use trail runners. Specifically, I bought the Salomon Quest 4D Gore-Tex boots. These things. Yep, and this is not really my jam right now. Now, these are fantastic boots, don't get me wrong, but they just were not for me. One thing I noticed right away is I had blisters, I have hot spots in them. It just didn't work well for me, as well as I made a mistake. I bought the exact size that I usually buy my shoes in, which is size 12. And so it didn't leave room for winter socks. And I remember my toes hurt so bad when I wear these, even now in the winter. And even just thinner socks in the summer, it just did not work well. I, of course, didn't go away from boots entirely. I went to the Salomon X Ultras, and these are the mids, and these are in Gore-Tex as well. But I made a mistake. Not only were they sized down for me, they're a lot heavier. And so that's why the X Ultras makes this appearance in the winter. Not only does it have room for winter socks in the X Ultras, but it's a lot lighter. The Salomon X Ultras almost feel like they're just high top trail runners, whereas the Quest 4D is definitely a boot, and it feels like a boot. It's super heavy. I can't move as fast or hike as fast in them. And so that was my first really big purchase that I regret. My next regret is the Enlightened Equipment Revolt 20 degree Underquilt. I don't use it anymore right now. It actually got sold relatively quickly. That was definitely in my I gotta try underquilts phase, and then I realized how versatile pads are, and I continue to use pads in Hammock. Those of you guys who follow the channel know right away that that's one thing I'm fairly well known for, is not using an underquilt at all, is because of this purchase. And it's not because, of course, like a lot of these pieces of gear, not because of the gear itself, because I found out pretty quickly I didn't like having to adjust underquilts. I didn't like the possibility of having to go to the ground when I have an underquilt is what I'm carrying, because it's still going to be uncomfortable no matter what. Now, this was one where I made a fairly expensive mistake, and I found out pretty quickly that just what works for everyone may not necessarily work for you. Sometimes you have to trial and error your own gear and figure out what's good. The Snow Peak Gigapower canister stove. Now, this one still kind of chaps me because I know a lot of people have had really positive experiences with their Snow Peak stove, but mine has been slow at boiling water, no matter the altitude, no matter the temperature, and it's horribly inefficient for me. It really burns through fuel a lot faster than my MSR Pocket Rocket 2. It just is a little bit heavier, and it just hasn't worked well. I really regretted getting that. For a while, it actually turned me completely off of canister stoves, because that was when I was fairly close to first starting, and I just didn't want to have anything to do with it. I actually moved to alcohol relatively quickly because of this Gigapower stove. Last but not least is my very first hammock purchase, which was a Buyer of Maine mosquito hammock is what I think it's called. All these long names. But I remember I actually laid in this maybe one time to try it out. And I recognized right away there were a couple things that were wrong with it for me. First of all, it's shorter than a hammock that I should have. There were strings and cordage everywhere. The net would pull on my face, and I could not get comfortable in the thing. Actually, this is what precipitated my first true hammock purchase, backpacking hammock purchase, which was the War Bonnet Blackbird XLC, because I realized pretty quickly that this Buyer of Maine hammock was just not for me. It just was not comfortable, and I wasn't going to do the hammock camping thing at all if I would have slept in this hammock. And so there you go. You kind of get some insight into gear choices that I've made and mistakes that I've made for me. Now, the thing about all these mistakes is that they're learning experiences. So it's not necessary that you should start right away and be super dialed in automatically. Each one of us kind of pairs our gear loadout down, and we figure out what works for us and our specific style of backpacking or camping. And so let me know down in the comments below, what gear do you regret buying? Maybe it's something that's super popular and you realize, you know what, it really did not work for me. Any regrets? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace.